In this video, we'll be talking about CSV files. In the previous two videos, you learned about text files. Second video, you learned about binary files. And today we are going to be learning the CSV files. Okay, so we need to know what are CSV files, how do you write to a CSV file, and how do you read from a CSV file. So our concentration is basically going to be writing and reading from a CSV file. And what exactly is a CSV file? Okay, so for that, let me just share my screen with you. Now, what is a CSV file? CSV stands for comma separated values, okay, which means the contents of the CSV file are going to be separated using a comma. So, comma separated values are called CSV files. And what is the importance of using CSV files? Now, CSV file is a very good format when you want to import or export data to other applications such as spreadsheets or databases. Now, to make it very simple, if I have created a CSV file in Python and I want to open it in Excel, I can do that. Or if I want to transfer it to a table in MySQL, I can do that. That is what I mean by a file whose format is usable in multiple applications. So I can transport the contents of the files, or even in not necessarily export, even import CSV files. So this is the basic most commonly used format when we want to share data among multiple applications. Okay. So what's a CSV file? Let me repeat. CSV stands for comma separated value. File is a very popular import and export data format used in spreadsheets and databases. Now, each line on a CSV file is a record, and each element of the record is separated from each other by means of comma. Okay, so the comma is called the delimiter of each text that is going to be seen on a line. Now, it is not necessary, it needs to be comma. Nowadays, you can change the delimiter. How do we change the delimiter? All that we will learn shortly. But generally on a common platform, if I say, CSV stands for comma separated values. But here in programming, we could see that I could separate values using a hyphen or a pipe sign or whatever. Is that clear? Okay, so I'll just show you a small example of how a CSV file would look. So here I have a CSV file with the name student_birthday.csv. Generally, CSV files will have, not generally, that's the way we write. CSV files will have the extension CSV. Now, let me tell you one thing. It is a text file basically, okay? So it is only a text file basically, but the minute we give a CSV extension, and if it has a particular format, then it becomes easy to import and export files, okay? Now, in the CSV file, what could be the content? Now, look at the first line. It says name, class, birthday, month. And under name, we have Alan Smith and Tara Sharma. Under class, we have 12B and 12C. And under birthday month, we have November and March. It's not exactly tabular, but it gives me the concept of a tabular data. That is why I said, and Excel, if you see, you have things in tabular form. In MySQL, we have things in tabular form. So even if it doesn't appear tabular here in this text file or the CSV file, it is storing tabular contents. Now, generally, the first line of a CSV file is a heading, like you see here, name, class, birthday, month. But it's not necessary that you need to have a heading, okay? But from the second line onwards, definitely every CSV file will be talking about a record. And can you see here that every record is on a new line? And the elements of the record are separated from each other by means of a comma, which means the class and the name is separated by a comma. The class and the birthday month is separated by a comma. So comma separated values. Okay. So generally the first line will identify the kind of data or what you're storing. Then subsequent lines will only talk about the actual data. So this is what a CSV file is, and we are going to learn is how in Python can I create a CSV file, or can I write to a CSV file, or how can I read from a CSV file. Is that clear? Okay. To make use of CSV files in Python, we are going to be using an inbuilt module called the CSV module. We've learned the statistic module, the math module, and we learned how to create our own modules as well. So here we are going to be using a built-in module called the CSV module. Now this module consists of certain functions, it contains classes, and these are going to help us for writing and reading data from a CSV file. Now, in this module, there are two important functions that we're going to be talking about. The first function being the reader function, the second function being the writer function. Now, this reader function, what does it do? It gives me a reader object. And that reader object will help me iterate through or loop through each and every record of the CSV file while reading. What does the writer function do? It gives me a writer object, or it returns a writer object. And this object is basically responsible for transferring the contents or for writing the strings into the CSV file using the delimiter. In our scenario, currently the delimiter is a comma. But for writing, remember, we will not only be using the writer method, there is also a method of a class, writer class, called writerows. I will come to it a little later. Okay, so this is the module that I'm going to be using, and the main two functions of the CSV module, the reader function and the writer function. Okay. Now, let's concentrate on how do I write something to a CSV file. Firstly, if I have to write something to a CSV file, I need to make use of the module called CSV. But before getting into a complete program, how do I write the writer function? Or what is the syntax of writing the writer function is what I have shown on screen here. So let's pay attention to what is being told to us here. CSV.writer, because writer is a function of a module named as CSV. So how do you call functions of a module? Name of the module dot the name of the function. Then the file object. Remember, before I write something to the file, don't I have to open the file? And who helps me in opening the file? A file object. So the file object that helped me to open the file. The delimiter parameter, which by default I said is comma, because it's comma separated values. But if you manipulate on the delimiter, you can change it to anything else also. I will show it to you when we're actually seeing an example. Now, quote char. What does quote char mean? What if your delimiter is a part of somebody's string? For example, suppose we are taking the address of an individual or an employee or a student. Now, while writing the address, he may put a comma. So now comma is our delimiter. So should the computer get confused between the comma in the address and the comma in the delimiter? No. For that reason, we make use of the quote char. Any string or any field that already has the delimiter as a part of that field, it will be enclosed within double quotes, because you have said quote char is double quotes. But if your quote char was a pipe sign, then any string that contains the delimiter is going to be enclosed within pipe signs. Again, I told you I will show you the examples when we actually start writing the code in Spider IDE. Is that clear? So to make use of the writing facility, I have to make use of the writer function. What does a writer function require? Mainly it requires only one parameter if you don't plan to touch the delimiter and the quote char. Delimiter is comma, quote char is double quotes between all the, enclosing all the strings which has the delimiter. But if you're not going to be touching the delimiter or the quote char, we basically need the file object. And what does the CSV.writer function do? It creates a writer object for me. Now, this is the object that will help me to actually do the writing using a method called writerow. So now on, This is the object, this is the writer object that was created by the method or the function called csv.writer. And this is the object that will help me invoke or call a function named as writerow, which allows me to write multiple rows into the CSV file. Now here I've shown you X. What does X stand for? X could be a tuple, which contains the entire record, or it could be a list, which contains an entire record. So X could be any data type, okay? Either a tuple or a list, which contains the entire record that you want to store. Is that clear? Okay, so just to see an example of this, let me take you to, so writing to a CSV file. So what are the steps that I need to follow? First and foremost, if I want to write something into a CSV file, I need to import the CSV module. So that's the first thing I do, import CSV. Okay, after that, what would I do is I have to open that particular file. And in what mode am I opening it? In W mode. Now, some may ask me, ma'am, W was the method for text files. WB was a method for binary files. So does this have a WC for CSV files? No. If you remember in the beginning, I said CSV files are basically plain text files. Only thing is it has a particular formatting to be followed. Okay. So obviously opening the file is going to be similar to opening of a text file. Okay. So let's see, how do I open a text file? You know it. And I'm using the same CSV file that we were talking about in the example. I don't need to explain to you now how to open. Okay, opening is not enough. I have to create a writer object. And which function allows me to create a writer object? A function named as writer of the CSV module. So I'm using the writer function. Now, if you remember, I have removed the delimiter. I've removed the quote char because I am assuming, I'm not assuming, I am expecting my delimiter to be comma and the quote char to be quotes. When I need to change, I will tell you. Okay, and where am I what am I creating? What is this function doing? It's creating or returning a writer object. Now, what's the name of my writer object here? The name of my writer object is data_writer. Now, this is the object that helps me to write something. But what is the something that I want to write? Either one thing is I get it from the user, okay, or I store it in a list or a tuple and directly write it. In this example, I'm storing it into a list and showing it to you. So I have a list, st_list, and it's a nested list because each element of the list is one record. The first one being the heading, which is name, class, birthday month. The second element being the name, class, and birthday month of the first child. And the third being the name, class, birthday month of the second child. So I have the entire thing in a list named as st_list. Okay, then I make use of the function called writerow. Okay, so I write for x in st_list because now st_list is a list, so it's iterable. I can, loop through it. X will get the first element, and next line says data writer.writerow x. So the first thing it will write is the name, class, birthday month, the field names. This is not compulsory, but you can do so. Next, it will write the Alan's detail. Next, it is going to write Tara's detail. Is that clear? Okay, next let us learn how to read contents from a CSV file. Okay, so for writing, we made use of a method called csv.writer, which was returning a writer object. And using that object, we used a function named as writerow to write the details. Okay, here for reading the contents of a text of a CSV file, we're going to be making use of a method called a reader. CSV.reader, because CSV is the name of the module. Here also it takes the same parameters like the writer method. The name of the file object, the delimiter, and the quote char. If you're not going to touch the delimiter or the quote char, we can leave it as it is and just specify the name of the file object. And that CSV.reader function is going to be returning a reader object. Now this reader object is iterable. It's going to be taking me to the contents of the file, and as I move through the reader object, it will give me one line at a time from the file. So we don't need a separate function to read. We will just iterate through or use a loop to iterate through data underscore reader, because that's the name of my reader object. And every time you iterate through it, it is going to give you one line from the reader, and it's going to be giving it to me as a string. Okay, so it's going to return the row as a string in a list. So, and the list will contain how many elements depending upon how many data elements were there in the string, in the CSV file on each row, without the delimiter. So whatever be your delimiter, the delimiter is not going to be a part of your contents of the list. The first element will be the first data in the CSV file will be the first element in the list. Second, the second element, the third element without the delimiter. That's what you're going to be seeing in the list. Is that clear? So let's see an example. Now, how do I read from a CSV file? First thing I need to know is import the required file. So I'm going to import the required file. After importing the required file, open that particular file. And I told you it's treated as a text file. So you don't need specific or special, access modes. It's just going to be read like we do with text files. After we open the file, we are going to be creating a reader object. And how is a reader object created? By using a function named as csv.reader. So I have created a reader object. What is my reader object's name? Data underscore reader. Now, what is this object doing? It's basically pointing to the elements of the file, and you can loop through data underscore reader to get one element at a time. How do you loop through an iterator? We already know. I write for row in data reader. So data reader is going to loop through all the lines of the file. What will row have? Each line of the file is going to be returned by the data reader, and I am going to display. Is that clear? So these are the basic things that you need to know about writing or reading to or from a CSV file. Okay, I will just take you to the Spider IDE, and there we will actually see some examples and execution of some certain things. Clear? Okay, now here I've just copied those lines that I showed you on that slide there into Spider IDE to show you how exactly it's going to work. Okay, I have a CSV file open here. Currently, let me just delete everything. So now my CSV file is empty. Okay, so now what am I going to do? I'm just going to be running this program. This is exactly like what we wrote. You import the CSV module, you open the file, you create the writer object, you create the list which will have all the contents that you want to write. You use a loop and you write the contents using the writerow function. Okay, so let's just execute the program. Okay, and now I can't see an output here because there is no print statement. But if I open the CSV file, can you see whatever was the contents of the, the list has been stored here. Is that clear? Okay, this is one way of doing it. One way of doing it, looping through. There's another option that I can show you is, instead of writing a loop, there is a method called write rows. When you say write rows, all the elements of the list is written at one time. So you don't need to loop. Okay, let me just empty the file now. Let me just empty the file now. So when I run the program, you will see how data has been transferred. So I have data underscore writer dot write rows, and now not X, because I'm not iterating through the list. I have all the elements of the list or elements stored in a list named as st underscore list. So I'm going to write st underscore list. Let's just execute the program. Okay, and now can you see there? Whatever was written previously is also written now. Is that clear? So write rows function is also going to be helping us, but remember to write something to a file. Remember, write row will write one record at a time. So you need to use a loop. Write rows will write the entire record. Now here I have stored the data in a tuple, in a list. You can store the data even in a tuple. Is that clear? Okay. Now let's read the contents of the file. I've already written the lines there. I'm just getting it up. Okay, so it's going to be opening the file. It's going to be reading the contents of the file. That means creating a reader object. And I told you reader object is an iterator. So you can iterate through it, and one row at a time you are going to be displaying. Is that clear? So let's just run the program. Okay, now can you see you got the heading, you got the first name, and you got the second name. Okay, so can you see empty list? Empty list was because in the file there were records. There was empty lines between the records. Okay, now how could I eliminate the empty lines? Basically not in your syllabus, but I'll just show you. If you open the file using the new line character as just /n. Okay, because by default what happens is every time you write something to the file, it is putting automatically after every write row, it's putting a /n and a /r. /r is a carriage return and /n is a new line character, almost doing similar things. So that's why you get a gap there. Now I'm saying new line is just /n. So that /r I'm eliminating and I'm saying make it only as /n. And then let's see when I do this, how does it go into the program or into the CSV file? Okay, so can you see here the contents? There are no more extra lines in between. That is because I wrote this. Let me just repeat what exactly happens. Every time you write row or write rows, it is going to be putting a /n. That's called the line terminator. /r/n. Okay, /r is carriage return escape sequence, and it's almost similar to /n. That's why you see it. See, so just having /n, you have one more line down. Okay, when I write new line is equal to /n, I am saying that the end of the string should not have /r/n, should only have /n. So the /r is eliminated. So I only see no lines. It just goes to the next line and displays the contents. Is that clear? Okay. Now this was a list which is, static. I have a particular name and a particular class and a particular month. What if I need to get data from the user? I have just written it below here so it can save me from a lot of typing work. And let me just explain it to you. Okay, so instead of writing this, what if I wrote this? Okay, what if I wrote this? I opened the file in write mode again. I created a writer object. Into a list, I wrote the heading. And after that, I wrote the heading to the file. Okay. Secondly, now what did I do? I'm not having a constant name or a class or a birthday month. I am taking the name from the user, the class from the user, and the birthday month from the user. Okay. After that, storing it in a list. Okay, here I have not taken it as a list. I'm taking it. Okay, let me put it back as a list. So storing it into a list. After that, writing the contents of the list, asking the user any more records. So here what is happening? It's not just Alan Smith or whoever. It is also going to be whatever you want to store. The user can decide what he wants to store. Okay, and then I read the contents of the file and display it. Okay, so let me just. Okay, it's asking me for the name. Let's say Asha. It's asking me for the class. Let's say 12B. It's asking me for the birthday month. Let's say October. It's asking me any more records. Let's say yes. And let's say Ravi is the next name. His class is 11C. And his birthday month, birth month is, let's say, July. Okay, it's asking me any more records. I say no and I stop. Okay, so can you see the details being displayed? Just ignore the empty spaces because I just told you in the previous example, I could have written the new line character here. New line is equal to /n and eliminated those. Is that clear? So the whole idea is it need not be constant. You can take the values from the user into a list or a tuple and you could write those values there. Is that clear? Okay. Now I want to show you something very important here. Okay. Did you see, let me take you to the file exactly, then you'll come to know. Okay, this is what was written. Did you realize that it automatically put the comma? Is because the delimiter is a comma. Okay. Now, What if I change the delimiter? Okay, so how do I change the delimiter? While writing to the file, I write delimiter is equal to, and let's say I'm putting a hyphen as a delimiter. Okay, now the same thing you'll have to do while you're reading as well. Otherwise there will be a confusion. Here the delimiter would be a comma. Okay, is equal to hyphen. Okay, is equal to hyphen. Okay, now let me just run the program. Okay, it's asking me for the name again. Okay, let me enter some new names and tell you that it actually changes. 12B. Okay, month is, let's say, March. Then I have one more record. Let's say it's Rohan. Class is 11C. And month is, let's say, April. Okay, any more records? I say no. See, it's displaying things right. But let me take you to the file to show you something. When I take you to the file, can you see the delimiter has become a hyphen because you said delimiter was a hyphen? And can you see this double quotes? You remember me speaking about escape quote char, not escape sequence, quote char in the writer and the reader function. Quote char by default was double quotes, which meant if your delimiter is a part of any string, can you see my delimiter, which is a hyphen, is a part of 12B? So it should not take the hyphen there as 12 delimiter B. It should take it as 12B. So it's put the quotes around the text, which has the delimiter as a part of the text. Okay. So in case you didn't want the the quote char to be double quotes, then what could I do? I could even write there as, let's say, quote char is equal to, and I am giving okay, similarly I will have to mention it here also. So quote char is equal to, okay, let's run the program. Okay, let me give names. ASDF 12-B, birth month April, yes, QWER 11-C, birth month Jan, no. Now, when it's displaying to me as I've entered, but I just want to show you the file. Now, when I show you the file, now can you see the pipe signs enclosing 12B and 11C? Because we said quote char is a pipe sign. And why didn't it enclose ASDF and April? Because they did not contain the delimiter. So if your text contains the delimiter, then to differentiate the delimiter and a part of a text, those quote char characters are applied. By default, delimiter is comma, and by default quote char is double quotes. So if your text itself has a comma in it, then that text will be enclosed within double quotes by default, but you can change it also. Is that clear? So I hope writing and reading from a CSV file is clear. And what did we learn? What is the importance of a CSV file? This CSV file can be shared or can be imported into Excel, or it could be imported into a table in MySQL, and so on. Okay, so we can export it, it could be imported there. So that is the whole idea or importance of a CSV file. But remember, CSV is a text file. Some may ask, instead of the birthday month, what if it was the percentage? You would have to convert it to a string. You can't store intent float as it is. You could have used the str function, convert it to a string, and then stored it into the file. Okay, so remember, it is a text file basically, but it follows a particular format. Therefore, it's given a special name called CSV files. And like I said, CSV basically stands for comma separated values. But we saw that the delimiter could be, nowadays they allow delimiters to be anything else depending upon what you have written in your program. Is that clear? I hope you have understood everything. Okay, so this was about CSV files. Thank you.